Just like with a vision and a strategy, shaping a culture and values starts with a mission, or with a question, why do we exist as a team, unit, or a company? Culture and core values are just the expressions of how we do things here in terms of our behavior, to each other or customers. As Miranda from a classic movie, The Devil Wears Prada, explained, "So you think this has nothing to do with you?" And then boom, boom, boom. Please pause the video and look at the attachment for the additional link. Pay attention on what Miranda is doing here. By giving a lesson about a simple blue sweater, she is connecting the history of her company through the influences on different designers she worked with to the choice of a single buyer deciding what to pick from the closet each morning, and how that decision is actually incepted within her room or her team. If that's not going to motivate you as an employee, nothing will. Here is another example coming from Simon Sinek's speech. See at the resources section as well. Focusing on a team spirit values. Why good leaders make you feel safe. Pay attention to the sequence where he is explaining the decision a leader made not to lay off his people, although he was under pressure, and how he responded, although mentioned twice within different stories. Because they would do the same for me, is the hearth of a properly shaped culture and incorporated values. Of course, we can always select different values we would like to emphasize and make stories about them, highlighting our heroes, what and how they did something, and similar. And that is how a culture is built. It is purposefully designed by a leader and his team, and it should be maintained daily through signaling and supporting important cultural values. It's usually done in an informal atmosphere and chit-chat, or giving lessons at specific moments, just like Miranda did. It can be about the importance of team spirit and supporting each other, innovations and fulfilling customer needs, importance of building an empire on a long run, short-term interests of investors, and measured contribution of each individual employee and project, or something else. That's the ultimate task of you as a leader, to find your voice and speak, or to verbalize what others feel is the right thing to do. It's up to you. Keep in mind that culture is not static at all. It is changing over time as people and companies get more and more mature. We like the approach used by a consultant and popular Udemy instructor, Lawrence Miller, presented in his book, Barbarians to Bureaucrats. Here, he combined company life cycles, leadership styles, and culture concepts to explain it. That is a useful dynamic approach on how a corporate culture changes over time, based on an organizational maturity and its growth in size. Mr. Miller uses 7 types of a culture regarding the needed leadership style: prophet, barbarian, builder and explorer, administrator, bureaucrat, aristocrat, and synergist. And, to better understand this typology, first, we should pay attention to changing focus during the time from the perspective of a wealth generation. Just like in societies, when a strong culture is created, there has to be an emerging faith, with a long-term focus. Usually, there is a creative leader who brings something new as a response to current challenges. He facilitates risk-taking and, if followed by success, he emerges into a local hero. Over time, context changes, society develops, and many initial elements have become changed. After reaching a sense of well-being, usually a decadency slowly emerges. Culture declines, usually before its financial manifestation. What is characteristic for societies might be applied to smaller organizations like companies as well. So, let's start with a prophet. Prophet. At the beginning, there is usually some form of annoying dissatisfaction. A creative person brings something new as a response to that current challenge of a society, or his unit or company. And this is usually followed by strong faith, allowing him to create the first followers who are going to help him develop the first products or services, which is a materialization of an idea. This creative person is usually a sort of a disruptor, someone who does not really fit in, just like Steve Jobs in the era of IBM, and he created Apple based on innovations. Barbarian. In order to survive, an innovation is not enough. Companies have to start conquering the market while keeping innovating by adjusting and bringing new products to satisfy market needs. Here is the focus on conquering untapped territories, meaning more sales and serving clients, where a leader has his hands on. That is why Barbarian, not a commander giving orders where and how to attack. A barbarian is always at the front of his comrades, giving an example and has direct communication. This is a time of constant crisis and fighting for every single buyer in order to survive. As a consequence, there is a little time for planning and administration. Builder and explorer. As a company continues to expand to new products and territories, new people are needed, specialization and diversification emerges, so the need to integrate them all becomes urgent. And for this, an infrastructure is a must. In parallel to developing capabilities and additional conquering, stabilization and specialization gradually become priorities. Developing organizational structure, processes, and introducing an early administration and rules. In addition to tough command, employees are learning to cooperate. Most likely, more and more external managers are brought to help the process. Administrator. At this stage, the company is starting to increase its administration. HR, finance, legal department, information systems, and similar, in order to integrate diverse parts of the organization. This is not wrong from a performance improvement perspective, but gradually shifts focus from the market to internal issues. Instead of talking about new markets, products, or technologies, the main topics like budget, management information systems, and incentives system emerge. Instead of a mess and inspirational stories about a crazy founder who did it, so characteristic for the early stages, administrators gradually introduce order and talks about rules. As a result, there is a little sense of urgency and crisis. Bureaucrat. As a company continues to grow, there is a gradual shift from coordination to control, and from innovation to following some rules and forms. From the financial perspective, that is probably the period when the company has a very strong cash flow, possibly the best. Management rules, and it is focused on short-term efficiency, return on capital employed, and defending sound positions at lucrative markets in order to secure stability, rather than exploring new questionable opportunities. And there is a beginning of alienation between formal leaders, or top executives, who suddenly started liking to give orders and being asked for approval, and employees, especially creative ones with a true leadership potential. Aristocrat. At this stage, leaders become arrogant and alienated from the crowd. On the other side, employees are looking for leaders who understand their pain and that the company is not responding to the market realities. Usually, internal conflicts and politics become an important part of a leader's life. Instead of focusing on innovation and conquering new territories, the company is focused on an external image and inherited reputation. Usually, there are cost-cutting measures in order to manage tiny cash flow, or if the company is still rich, looking for M&A opportunities in order to show off, find new growth sources instead to create it internally, or diversify in order to reduce perceived risks. Most likely, mercenaries started to rule the company. Synergist. As a main response to decline, a synergist emerges in order to enhance renewal and sustainability. Company's purpose is probably the first thing to be challenged and renewed. The next thing refers to changes in power structures in order to rebalance a team into a diverse one, capable of innovating. In order to sustain innovational spirit and capability building, it is essential to support experimentation and learning while achieving gradual success. So, a synergist has to bring in and support new prophets and barbarians, and empower employees and reduce formality in order to renew corporate culture. As a leader, your job is to recognize the thinking pattern within your company and challenge it by establishing the right culture within your team and start spreading it around. If your company is at a messy stage, everyone would appreciate your ability to bring the order. Or, if there is too much bureaucracy, aristocratic managers would need your spirit and innovation capability, and they will support you, but be careful of politics. And always start with why when speaking and demonstrating your values. That is how you will learn very fast who is on your side.